The city of Seattle had always felt alive at night. The glow of the Space Needle stood like a watchtower against the sky. Ferries drifted across the bay with their lights shimmering on the water, and coffee shops stayed open late, offering warmth to wandering souls. For Allison Green, the city was both home and a reminder of how unpredictable life could be. At 22, Allison was in her final year of college, studying graphic design at the University of Washington. Between her classes, part-time work at a small art supply shop, and caring for her younger sister, she barely had time for herself. But she loved Seattle. The smell of rain on the pavement, the endless bookstores, and the way the city seemed to change personalities depending on the season. Her favorite place, however, was Pier 57. At night, she often walked there alone, carrying her sketchbook. The sound of waves calmed her, and the city lights reflecting on the water gave her new ideas for her designs. It was on one of these late-night walks that she met Ryan Carter. Ryan had recently moved to Seattle from Portland. At 24, he worked as an architect, often staying up late at the firm, sketching new designs with pencil smudges across his hands. His life looked polished from the outside, but inside, he carried loneliness. He had left behind old friendships and a long-term relationship that ended painfully. Seattle was supposed to be his fresh start, though he hadn't expected it to feel so empty. One midnight, Ryan found himself at Pier 57 too, leaning against the railing with his notebook in hand. He was sketching the curve of the Ferris wheel when he noticed Allison nearby, her face bent over her sketchbook. She was so focused she didn't notice him until her pencil slipped and rolled across the wooden planks. Ryan picked it up and held it out. "You dropped this," he said softly. Allison looked up, startled. "Oh, thank you." She accepted the pencil, her eyes catching his. "You draw?" he asked, nodding toward her sketchbook. She hesitated, then smiled shyly. "Mostly doodles. And sometimes ideas for class." "I'm an architect," Ryan said. "So I guess we're both stuck with sketchbooks." That simple exchange sparked something neither of them had expected. They talked for nearly an hour that night about art, design, and the strange way the city seemed quieter after midnight. When they finally said goodbye, Allison walked home with her heart beating faster than it had in months. The nights turned into a rhythm. Every few evenings, they'd both find themselves at the pier, sometimes by coincidence, sometimes by plan. Ryan would bring his notebook, Allison her sketchbook, and they'd sit side by side, sketching in silence or sharing stories. One evening, rain drizzled lightly, and Ryan held out his jacket over both their heads as they laughed and ran toward the Ferris wheel. They ended up riding it together, the city glittering below them. Allison pressed her face to the glass, smiling at the view. "Seattle looks different from up here," she whispered. Ryan looked at her instead of the skyline. "Yeah, different." As weeks turned into months, their connection deepened. Ryan began stopping by Allison's art shop, bringing her coffee during her shifts. Sometimes he'd wait outside her classes with an umbrella if the weather turned stormy. In return, Allison cooked for him once in a while. Simple meals, but ones that filled his small apartment with warmth. Yet both carried unspoken fears. Allison had lost her parents in a car accident 3 years ago, and raising her younger sister had taught her responsibility, but also left her afraid of losing people she cared about. Ryan, still scarred from his past relationship, feared letting someone in only to be abandoned again. One evening, as they sat by the pier, Allison closed her sketchbook and asked quietly, "Do you ever feel like happiness is temporary?" Ryan looked at her, hearing the weight in her voice. "All the time. But maybe that's what makes it precious." She studied him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "You always know what to say." "Maybe I just know what you need to hear," he replied gently. Their unspoken feelings grew, but so did the challenges. Ryan's firm offered him a project in New York, a chance of a lifetime. He hadn't told Allison yet, torn between ambition and the bond they had built. Allison, meanwhile, received an invitation to display her artwork in a local gallery for the first time. She wanted to share her excitement with Ryan, but she sensed his mind was elsewhere. The tension came to a head one night. Allison had finished her gallery setup and rushed to the pier, hoping to see Ryan. He was there, staring out at the water. "You didn't answer my texts," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I've been thinking," Ryan admitted, turning to her. "There's an offer for me in New York. A big project. I don't know if I can turn